And I want to say right off the bat, this is going to be probably a very controversial video. I also want to say to my regular subs that this is a sports video. It has to do with football. And so if you're not into sports, you can go ahead and click out of it if you don't want to watch the video. Just letting you know, I'm not, if you want to watch it, that's fine. But I just letting you know right now, it's a sports video, and I'm going to be uploading this to my sports channel as well. Now, I wasn't originally planning on making a video on this topic, but I'm at the point now, I can't help it. I've got to say something. And to be honest, I am so damn tired of people trying to make everything an issue of race. It doesn't seem to matter what it is anymore. The media and many people as well have to turn it into a racial controversy. And let me just say this right off, which may piss off a lot of people. It isn't the white people who are doing it. It's people like Deion Sanders, Stephen A. Smith, Kendrick Perkins, who are always trying to start a fire, making everything an issue of race. It's like I get so tired because I know it's coming every time. Anytime that a white coach gets hired, you can bet that Stephen A. Smith is going to come out bitching about the fact that it wasn't a black coach that was hired. Now, of course, ESPN, being the woke network that it is, that kind of garbage is going to come out. Truth is, if you own a business, regardless of what it is, you have the right to hire whoever you feel is the best candidate, regardless of skin color. And it is no different for NFL owners. Okay, and also, let me just state right off the bat that I am not racist. Yeah, I'm white, I'm not black, but I'm not racist. And I understand that I'm not going to identify with black people who've been discriminated against. I know that. I fully know that. But let me also say that from my own experience, it's not us white people who discriminate most of the time. It's funny to me how a lot of times and this is not universal, so don't take this as an umbrella statement, but what this is from my own experience. It's the black people who cry racism when it's the black people who are the racists. All right, I'm not talking about everybody, but I'm talking about my own experience. I know that statement's going to be met with criticism, and that's okay. But I'm speaking from my own experience, what I have seen and heard. I know my experience is not everybody else's experience either. I know that. But let me give you a few examples. When I was living in the Seattle area, I had a friend named Robert. He was a black guy. We were good friends. Used to have him over to the house all the time to watch football or whatever. Well, he's a cool guy. But he was one of those guys that he had this extreme view that he always felt that everything happened to him because he was black. And one day we were out running around doing something. We stopped at a McDonald's. And there was this elderly lady who was working the counter. And I don't remember what the deal was. It was something with the fries or something. I don't remember. It's been too long ago now. But anyway, Robert goes up there, and the lady was very pleasant. She was really nice. She was probably 60s or 70s. And she's up there, and Robert's just being a prick. Robert was up there just being a total asshole. And he was getting all over her, and finally, she had enough of it, and she kind of barked back. But even then, she really wasn't. Put it this way, she was a lot nicer than I'd have been. And Robert comes in, he sits back down, and he says, "You see what you have to go to when you're a black man?" I'm just sitting there, and I'm looking at him. I go, "Dude, it has nothing to do with the fact that you're black. You were being an asshole." And she was a lot nicer to you than I'd have been. And it actually made him think about it a little bit, and he actually ended up going back up there and apologizing to her once he realized that he was just being a turd. Had nothing to do with the fact he was black. You know, I remember one time, I can't remember if it was Seattle or when I lived in the Dallas area. I lived in the Dallas, Texas area for 8 years. I can't remember which place it was. But I walked into it was a Jack in the Box. I walked in there to get me something to eat. And there was a couple of black gals working the counter, right? I walk in there and I make eye contact with the gal. Make eye contact with her. She saw me there and she just turned around and started doing her thing and making burgers again. And then this black couple come in. They were like teenagers or whatever, guy and a gal. Black couple came in, and she turned around and saw them and went to take their order. And it pissed me off. Anyway, I ended up chewing her ass because it's like I came in, you saw me. I was here like 5 minutes before these other people came walking in, and you didn't take my order, but you took their order. Is it because I'm white? All right, so, hey, dude, it happens to us, too. I remember when I was in Texas, I was living in Duncanville, Texas, and the gal I was dating at the time, we stopped at a CVS pharmacy. In fact, it was the one there at Wheatland Road in Cockrell Hill. For those of you who are from the area, you know right where that is. And then there's a Walgreens just kitty corner from there. And we stopped at that CVS and we bought a few things. So we go up to the counter and this black guy waits on us and he starts ringing everything up and then he just walks away. He hang up about half our stuff, then walked away and went to the back room. And we're like, what the hell? I mean, he just stopped ringing us up and just walked off. Didn't say anything like, I'll be right back or anything. He just walked off and he went back in the other room back there and he's back there doing his thing. He just left us there hanging. And we're like looking at each other like, what in the hell? Well, finally, the other gal who was white, she got done with her customer, and she saw us still standing there, and she comes over and she says, kind of asked what was going on, and I told her, I said, this guy goes walking off as he rang up half our stuff and goes walking off on us. And she just kind of like gave me a look like, oh, geez, So she ended up ringing us up and checking us out, and we paid for our stuff and left. But there was stuff like that happened all the time when I was in Texas. I mean, I saw racism from the other side. So, yeah, it's not always black people that are discriminated against. They do it against white people, too. I mean, there are so many instances I could tell you about. And it was never because I was rude to anybody. It was nothing that I did to anybody. They were just, you could tell, they didn't like white people. I never did a thing to them. So, in my experience, or as a result of my experience, I guess I could say, I'm convinced that there are many instances where no racism is involved at all, but people try to twist it and try to create a racial incident out of it. And like I say, the thing is, racism works both ways. How can you scream, stop racism, when you practice it yourself? And again, I realize that's not everybody. But honestly, that's what I call hypocrisy. And it doesn't pertain to black people. It pertains to everybody. Black, white, brown, chartreuse, whatever color. When you can't be screaming about racism when you're the one propagating it. And then it doesn't help when the woke media tries to paint everything with an umbrella of racism, trying to say that white people are against anyone of color regardless of the sport. And then they bring up the Fab Five basketball team at Michigan, saying white people were against them because of race. White people didn't like the Fab Five team. And that is so untrue. I mean, that is an outright fabrication and an outright lie. I mean, I know for me personally, I love the Fab Five. I was rooting for them big time. They went up against North Carolina in the national championship game. I was rooting for them. I wanted them to beat Carolina. And I was extremely disappointed when they didn't win. I also had many friends, co-workers, or whatever that I knew who were rooting for them the same as me. All white guys, by the way. But, of course, the woke liberal media wants to make people think that only black people were rooting for the Fab Five. Again, and I'm just going by my experience, that wasn't the case that I saw at all. Now, another example. Now, I'll be totally honest and say that I believe Michael Jordan is the GOAT. And there's just, to me, that's cut and dried and indisputable. The best basketball player who ever played. And I honestly don't understand the controversy between him and LeBron James. Now, LeBron is definitely one of the best players who's ever played, but he'll never be Jordan, period. And keep in mind, I've seen both of them play. I saw Jordan since he was a freshman in college. I saw LeBron play on ESPN in high school. I've seen their complete careers up to this point. LeBron will never be Jordan. Now, as I recall, Michael Jordan is black. Correct me if I'm wrong. And as I recall, Larry Bird of the Celtics was white. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. Every time the Bulls played the Celtics, I wanted Jordan to completely kick Bird's ass. I wanted MJ to totally embarrass him. I wanted Jordan to annihilate Larry Bird. I didn't like Larry Bird. I didn't like the Celtics. A white guy. Also, as I recall, Bill Lambert of the Detroit Pistons was white. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. I absolutely could not stand that jerk. In that time, those of you who remember this, when Robert Parrish of the Celtics, who was the Celtics center, took Lambert down and started walloping him, I was totally rooting for Parrish. Even though I hated the Celtics, I was still wanting to see Parrish just pummel the crap out of Lambert. I always wanted Jordan to totally destroy him. I loved it every time when Jordan would dunk over him. I loved it when Jordan would embarrass him. So my like or dislike for somebody is never based on race. It's based on the person. It's based on their words, their actions, their character, and what they put on public display. Now, I'm going to get into the crux of the matter right now. Now, the liberal woke media has taken the hiring of Deion Sanders at the University of Colorado and have twisted it and turned it into something racial when it is not. And Deion himself has tried to turn this into a racial issue. Whether it's a marketing tactic or whatever, Deion's comments have turned this into a racial thing, when in fact that is not the case. You see, the media tries to paint a picture that Deion isn't liked because he is black. They say that the other coaches hate him because he is black. Deion himself, in that one interview, talking about, you people don't want to see a confident black man. And they're talking about how they're intimidated and scared because of him being in his position. Dude, you're not the only black coach in college football. Now, here's the thing that bothers me, and it has nothing to do with skin color. And let me just say, if you're not a true Christian, you're not going to understand this point that I'm going to make here. However, if you are a true Christian who tries to live a godly life following the Word of God, it will make perfect sense to you. Now, here's the deal. Deion Sanders claims to be a Christian. He claims to live by biblical values. Yeah, he talks a good game when it comes to Christianity, but his words and actions do not display those biblical values. His swag and all the other junk do not display what the Bible would consider godliness. Now, I understand a lot of you are going to try to downplay what I'm saying, but the truth is, if you're not saved, I don't expect you to embrace it or understand it. Yeah, Deion says he's a Christian, but if that's the case, why would he bring people into the locker room to speak to the kids who have completely opposite values? Makes no sense. Now, if I was the coach, there's absolutely no way I would ever bring those people into the locker room. Two of the people I know for a fact are Luciferians. He has Lil Wayne lead the team onto the field. I don't know if you know this or not, but Lil Wayne is a Luciferian. Do you know what a Luciferian is? Well, when you consider that Lucifer is simply another name for Satan, what does that tell you? You're supposedly a Christian, and you allow a worshiper of Lucifer to lead your team onto the field? No way. I'm sorry, but that's an absolute disgrace in my book. No excuse for that. Now, the next thing I want to touch on is Deion's arrogance. And I'll be honest, I have never liked Deion. Never. I didn't like him in college, I didn't like him in the pros, and I don't like him now. And none of that dislike has anything to do with race. Yeah, I'll be the first to give him his props as far as his playing ability. I think he's the best cornerback to ever play. I mean, his skills and his athleticism was, both of those were above and beyond his peers. He was dominating. But I never liked him. And again, that has nothing to do with race. But it has everything to do with his arrogant, braggadocious attitude. I've never liked that. Now, as far as him being a coach at Colorado, here are my thoughts. First of all, he didn't get the job based on his skill, but on his popularity. And it's the same scenario for Jackson State. He was able to build a winning team at Jackson State because of his popularity. Now, the truth is, I do not think Deion is a good coach. Yeah, he's a good motivator, he's a good talker, and he's a good manager. I mean, he was able to put together a staff at both Jackson State and Colorado that was very effective. I'll give him that much. I'm not saying he has no input into it, but without that excellent of a staff, Deion would not have a good team. Granted, all coaches who are successful have good staffs. Okay, I'm not going to make it sound like Nick Saban doesn't have a good staff and Dabo Swinney doesn't have a good staff. They all have good staffs. Every NFL coach has a staff that's successful, has a good staff. But let me state again that I do not like Deion's arrogance. You can call it competence, you can call it swag, whatever you want to call it. But for a 56-year-old man who claims to be a Christian, the attitude and behavior that he displays are disgusting to me. I mean, he's always been overly cocky, and as far as I've seen, he's never displayed an ounce of humility. I mean, even after getting boat raced and embarrassed by Oregon 42-6 this past weekend, he's still cocky in the post-game interview, talking about, I keep receipts. Oh, you better get me now. Blah, blah, blah. Now, what other coach at this level of competition would say crap like that? Can you think of any other coach, especially in a Power 5 conference, that would talk like that? No, nobody. While I was watching that, I'm sitting here thinking, dude, you just got your ass handed to you on a plate, and you're still yapping that crap? And by the way, I love what Coach Lanning said to his team before the game. And anybody who had criticized it has never heard a pregame speech from a coach before. Because the honest truth is, coaches would use anything, any bulletin board material, any statement or action by the opposing team or coach to motivate their players, put a chip on their shoulder to fire them up. And that's exactly what he did. And what he said was totally justified. Here, Oregon is a top 10 team. Nobody's talking about them. Colorado's getting all the attention. They're getting all the hype. Deion has just been hype. Having these Hall of Fame football players in to see his team. Having all these celebrities in to see his team. A total hype machine. And I, for one, was overjoyed when the hype machine got rolled. I mean rolled. Again, it has absolutely nothing to do with race. Yeah, there's been some white coaches who like to shoot their mouth off in the same way, and I always wanted to see them get served some humble pie as well. I don't like arrogance. I don't like people who seem to have to brag all the time. I respect humility. I respect those who don't have to always yap. But in spite of saying that he's a Christian, Deion has never displayed humility. In some interviews I've seen, Deion says, we're not arrogant. We're confident. We're not arrogant. Oh, really? Well, what about his son, Shadur, out flashing his Rolex watch? Yeah, the antics of Colorado pregame. They're going in and stomping all over the O at midfield at Autzen Stadium. Yeah. Oh, you can guarantee that the Oregon players were shown that video. Yeah. Oh, we're not arrogant. What about Travis Hunter out yapping to the Colorado State players before the game, out there talking smack and running his arrogant mouth, acting like a moron? Here he is, he's talking all that smack, and he thinks that the opposing team doesn't want to light him up as a result? Ha! Yeah. Wishful thinking. And everybody was all over Henry Blackburn for that hit on Hunter. Now, I'm not condoning a late hit. I'm not saying that was right. But I will tell you this, and I think you agree with me if you're a competitor. You see that guy talking all that smack before the game. And I can tell you right now, if I had a shot at him like that, I'd have taken it too. I'd have lit his ass up. And the thing is, it really wasn't that vicious of a hit like the media tries to portray it. You know, they make it out to be this vicious, terrible hit. Blackburn was running, if you look at the replay, Blackburn was running toward the sideline. He wasn't running upfield. He was running toward the sideline. He wasn't running right at Hunter. Watch the replay on YouTube if you don't believe me. I mean, and by the way, that's a hit you used to see multiple times a game, both college and NFL. Back when I was growing up, that was something you saw multiple times a game before football evolved into modern day pussy ball. I mean, those late hits were normal. They weren't even penalties, unless they were way late. But you used to see the ball go incomplete and the guy, boom, get slammed by a defensive backer or linebacker. But in this soft, feminized society we live in today, all of a sudden things that used to be normal in football are now considered outrageous. Hell, even Travis Hunter, in a subsequent interview, said, hey, it's just football, right? You didn't see him whining about it, and he was the one that got hit. He's just saying, hey, it's just football. No. Now, one last point I want to cover. And this is the way the media has almost elevated Deion to the level of a deity. The way they've tried to make him untouchable as far as criticism. Oh, if you don't like Deion, you're a racist. If you don't like the Colorado football team, you're a racist. No, I don't like Colorado because I was always a Nebraska Cornhusker fan, and Colorado was the enemy. I've always hated Colorado. I've always hated the Denver Broncos because they were in the same division with my Seahawks. It has nothing to do with race. Nothing. Oh, but if you criticize Deion, you're a racist. If you don't like his tactics, you're a racist. It's like they've formed this protective bubble around Deion to defend anything and everything he says or does. And all of these sports talk shows are completely pro-Deion. You got Michael Irvin, Warren Sapp, Skip Bayless, and others are major Deion promoters. And that anyone who dares to speak out against Deion are automatically vilified in the media. Now, what has really gotten me frustrated and angry is the way that people have gone after Jason Whitlock for speaking the truth. Now, Whitlock used to be on Speak for Yourself on Fox, and now he's independent because he wouldn't follow the Fox, the woke agenda that's coming about. Now, I just watched his premiere last night, which I would encourage anyone to watch it. And I will try to remember to put the link to that video. I'll try to remember to pin it in the comments. Now, Jason Whitlock is a Christian. And like me and others, he's not perfect. But he speaks common sense. Now, the problem is, he's coming from a Christian perspective, as I'm also trying to do. And it's a fact that most people in the media are woke liberals, so I don't expect them to understand where Jason's coming from. But he tells it like it is. He brings the darkness to the light. He paints a true and accurate picture of Deion and the Colorado program. Sorry, I hate to burst your bubble, but Deion is not God. Deion is not a deity. He is a hype machine and a marketer. He says, oh, you better get me now. But if you look at the latest rankings for recruiting class, in one publication, Colorado is 73rd, and in another, they are 75th. Okay, so time will tell if what Deion says will come to pass. I'm not rooting against him, but, well, put it this way. As long as he keeps yapping his mouth, as long as he maintains this arrogant attitude, as long as he's all hype, No, I'm against him, and I'm against Colorado. I want to see them get boat raced every game. I'm just being honest. Look, all I know is they got exposed by the Oregon Ducks big time. Now, I'm not sure if the same thing will happen against USC this coming weekend. The game's at Colorado. So I'm sure that the home field will help. And I know, having lived in Oregon for a long time, I don't now, but I do live right on the Oregon border. Playing at Autzen Stadium in Eugene is not an easy place to play at all. It is a very hostile environment. It's not an easy place to play. But I think even having the home field advantage, Colorado could be in serious trouble against USC. But we'll see. USC's defense hasn't been that stellar, so it could end up being a close game. Who knows? Now, even though I say I don't root against Deion per se, I was glad to see him brought back down to earth by the Ducks. And again, it has nothing to do with race, as I said. It's simply a matter of principle, regardless of skin color. Take care.